What's the biggest thing missing with most trades companies these days?
Wow. I would say that most trade companies probably have a really old school way of dealing with their people, how they hire, how they treat people, how they act. I know when I first came up in the business, it was that old school, be really hard on your people, grind them, ride them till the end. Cause that's how you were taught. And that's how I was taught when I was very young too. But, this is a much different, generation. It's a much different hiring force. And, I don't think business owners in the trades spend enough time learning how to relate to their people, to get the most out of them, to be able to grow. And so they end up churning, burning, turning over people all the time when they should be investing in the ones they have. And I think that's a huge mistake.
Tradesmen built America, not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. It's funny because I'm part of a networking group that constantly turns people over. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how do y'all not keep members for a long time?
Yeah.
And that blows my mind.
Yeah.
But their motto is just keep bringing in new members and we'll stay full. Don't worry about it.
It's crazy, right?
It is. It really is.
It's not that young people these days don't want to work. It's that they don't want to work in the environment that you have.
They don't want to work in the environment we work in.
And it's a much different generation. I've hired a ton of people in this generation. When I got my first job, I traded my time for money. Mm-hmm. That's how it was. You went to work for a certain amount of hours and you got paid, and then you went home and you did your thing. And that's not the way this generation thinks. They want to trade their time for a cause, purpose, system, something that they believe in, that they happen to get paid for. And so it's a very different way of thinking about it. So give them something to believe in, give them something to belong to, give them something to want to contribute to. They will trade their time for that because they happen to get paid for it and make a living. It's very different.
No, it's a neat way to look at it. I love that. So normally when I have people in, they talk about how hard it is to get people.
Yeah.
Do you have a hard time getting people?
No.
Really?
I do not have a hard time hiring people.
And right now you're doing roofing.
Correct.
And when we talked earlier, you said, look, I can hire 100 people.
Yeah.
Is it as easy to hire 100 plumbers or 100 HVAC techs, or?
It's as easy. I once in my career hired 100 people in 18 months into the trades. And I wrote different job ads than everybody else. I had a different hiring process than everybody else. I had a different interview process than everybody else. I had a different onboarding process than everybody else. I did an onboarding one time. We used to call it your fun first day. And so I'd have 7 or 8 people waiting in the lobby for the person when they showed up to work. And then we all went out to breakfast. And then we went and toured some jobs that were going on in the field at the time. And then we would go do something fun, go to an escape room, go bowling, ride go-karts, go play paintball. It would depend. And people were never expecting that on their first day of work. Yeah. Right. And I one time had a guy halfway through, he goes, man, I got a buddy that's a plumber, and I texted him and he's going to call you because he wants to come in.
That's pretty cool.
And so it's pretty cool to be able to, then those people start recruiting for you, because the one thing I would hear from people was I wasn't expecting that. And that's when I knew I was better than everybody else at it, because they would tell me I wasn't expecting that. It may have been something as simple as the interview. Wow, I wasn't expecting the interview to go like that. I wasn't expecting to read the job ad that you wrote. That's how you know you're doing it better than everybody else. I'm a very humble guy. I don't brag about much. This is what I do. And I think I do it better than anybody else. And because it's different. And you'd be surprised at how many people I've coached on how to do this that won't do it.
So take just a second and tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Brandon Jones. I am a partner at Express Home Services here in Richardson, Texas. I always tell people I'm not from Texas, but I got here as quickly as I could.
We'll never call you a native Texan, just so you know.
That's okay. I don't need to. I'm just happy to be here. Yeah. I didn't come to change anything. I just came
to
be a part.
I love that.
I came to be a part of what's already going on.
I was going to say, you like it that much in Seattle? Guess what? It's still there.
The difference from Seattle to Texas is unbelievable. Southern hospitality is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And if you ever want to learn about that, come down to Texas and hang out, because you can't escape it. You can't escape friendly people in Texas. You can't find them in Seattle. I love my Seattle peeps, but yeah. So
what's your job every day? What do you do every day?
So right now we're focusing on roofing. That's our primary service offering that we have. I'm doing some roofing sales right now, which is really cool. We use drone technology to inspect roofs. We also get on roofs, but the drone technology is really great. It gives customers a picture report of all the damage and everything going on their roof, and it's really fun to fly the drone around.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you've ever flown one, but
so you're a commercial drone pilot now?
I have the little license.
I love that. I want to get one of those.
It's actually pretty easy to pass, believe it or not. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I passed the test. It's not hard.
You ever heard of Skills USA?
Yeah.
So I went to their national competition.
Okay.
Congratulations to Belton, the city of Belton in Texas,
okay,
and Texas State Technical College. They won a team event, so they're going, I believe, to World,
yeah,
which is really cool. But one of the competitions, everybody thinks it's just trades. It's trades in this building: plumbing, electrical, HVAC, carpentry, welding, all kinds of crazy stuff. Then you go into another building. One of my favorite things I got to watch was the drone flying, and they've got like an obstacle course where they've got to land. And
I'm not
one
that
of the
good.
Coolest things, man, that they've got this jig built out of PVC pipe with golf balls on it. 3 of the golf balls are yellow and 5 or 6 of them are blue. They've got to knock the yellow balls off without a blue ball falling off.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, okay, this is freaking cool.
I'll tell you a secret about my drone. I got the safety setting on, so if I get within 3 feet of an obstacle, the drone stops.
There you go. I need that.
I can't crash it.
I need that.
But yeah, so we really right now we're specializing in helping homeowners through the insurance process when they have a damaged roof, which can be very confusing and very misleading. Here in Texas, people get their doors knocked on 17 times a day by piranhas wanting to come in. But we're trying to do it different, right? I think we have the best warranties and guarantees in the industry to help people out. And, our job is to get that home protected back the way it was before the storm came in and caused all the damage.
Cool.
And it's really fun. I love it.
This video is sponsored by High Level. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield. One thing that I tell people, when you hire a coach, do what they tell you to do.
Right.
There's a reason you hired them. And even if it's, hey, I don't think that'll work. Okay.
Right.
Try it.
Try it.
Along the way of trying it, you're liable to say, hey, you know what? His way did not work 100% for me, but you know what? I picked up 3 things along the way.
Correct.
That if I incorporate that into what I do, now I've got my own unique way. Because apparently you didn't learn how to do this exactly the way you do it from someone that taught you this exact way to do it.
Not at all.
You learn from different people. You put the different things together and thought, man, if I take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I was angry. I set up 8 interviews in one day for a call center position, and 6 of them didn't show up. And the 2 that showed up, I wish they hadn't. And so I started complaining about our hiring process, and the owner of the company I was working for at the time said, sounds like you want the job. And I said, oh no, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And so I started talking to people that do this, right? And one thing I always tell people when I coach them, hey, when you tweak it, because I know you will, let me know what you learned and what worked for you, because I'd like to add it into what I do as well. Because it's never going to be perfect and it's always evolving. There's another generation coming along behind this one that's going to hire differently than this one does.
Oh yeah.
And if we sit there and there's a really old saying, right? You can't do business today using yesterday's methods and expect to be in business tomorrow. So you have to evolve and adapt with it. But, I recently put out an ad for a call center, a call taker, and I got 24 hours. I got 180 applications. 180 applications in 24 hours. And I know what everybody's thinking, man, how do you whittle those down? How do you review? How do you analyze? I spent probably a total of 45 minutes figuring out the 2 people that I wanted to interview. And I interviewed 2 and hired the first one that I interviewed. I still interviewed the second one, but by that point I have a job offer ready, and I offered it to her and she accepted. And then I had another interview coming in. And so I put them in what's called my bullpen. So I have someone warming up in the bullpen. That way, if I need another call taker, I can call this person, say, you still interested? Now I don't have to go through my process again.
I love that.
I just go to the bullpen.
And the neat thing about that is, I think as entrepreneurs, 2/3 of our day should be marketing and recruiting.
Absolutely.
1/3 of the day, look, it's being a fire protection officer, not a firefighter.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do things right, you're not fighting fires.
Yeah.
Now, in the trades, that happens. Hey, we got an emergency. We got to jump through a hoop. Okay.
Yep.
Make it happen, guys. Let's go. But most trades company owners don't market. They hand it to someone else.
Correct.
They don't recruit. They're like, look, nobody can find people right now, so we're just not going to do it. And they wait till they need people to start looking.
Correct.
And they're not looking the right way.
Too late.
Yeah. But by the time they need somebody, they're already losing money. And I had a lady in here that does house cleaning.
Okay.
She's got a house cleaning business. And she's like, I want to open all across the United States because I can hire people anywhere.
Sure.
Similar to you. She has a process. Her process may be a little bit more in depth on the pre-screening, watch this video. You're going to learn about our company. Watch this. She's like, look, they've already worked for 4 or 5 hours, whether they realize it.
Right.
Watching videos, learning about the company, learning about the people, learning about the culture, and making sure it's a fit.
Yeah.
Then by the time they get through, then she already knows, look, okay, this person, unless they just completely BS'd me all the way through everything, this is the person that's right for this job.
Right.
And you can do a lot of that these days.
Easy.
One thing too, and look, I'm big into go high level and everything they offer and stuff like that. You can even set it up where you're texting them, where people can literally text information back and forth. That's the modern tool for communication for most of these people.
Absolutely.
And most companies don't want to use it. No, pick your butt up, get in the car, drive down here, talk to someone, sit in the office and wait for an hour till the person before you's done. And they're like, man, I just want a job.
Yeah.
Hire me.
Yeah. And what's wrong with that method? I have 3 kids, 21, 20, and 16. I can't remember what their faces look like because if they ever want anything, they text me. I'll call them and they respond with a text.
Yeah.
You know, it's the way that it's done. And
my phone rang. What do you want?
Right. And it's interesting how you say, I think your model of, 2/3 of your time on marketing and recruiting and the other third spent handling fires. Most guys in our trades, as you know, spend 90% of their time handling fires.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't have the other stuff figured out. Right. I was with a guy that I'm coaching and his phone rang about 30 times before lunch and we're on our way to lunch and we get in the truck and the phone rings and I looked at him. I said, don't answer it. And he said, what? And I said, let's see if they figure it out on their own. I said, we're going to call this guy back in 20 minutes. You were out of service. So I called him back 20 minutes later and what's the first thing the guy said?
I figured it out.
I got it figured out. I said, so stop answering your phone all the time and putting out all these fires because I think where also is the time to do what made you an entrepreneur and made you great in the first place, which was to dream big and have a big goal and go do something that other people weren't doing. I used to spend a half hour every day and I got to get back to it because it's a creative outlet for me. And it's just, we're talking about this. I remembered that I quit doing it, but I would turn off my computer monitor and my phone for a half an hour every day and grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down crazy ideas.
I'll tell you what, and I love that. I love that so much. Do you know who Kat Cole is?
No.
You do. You just don't know it yet.
Okay.
She used to work at Hooters. She moved up and became the CEO of Cinnabon.
Got it.
Okay.
I sold a furnace to the owner of Cinnabon.
I love that.
He's a Seattle guy.
Well, he knows Kat. So there you go.
Greg Coleman is his name. Yeah.
So here's the cool thing about her. And I watched an interview one time. And it's funny because I told this story one time and a guy sends me a message. He says, so she went from, I want to get this right. She went from wings to buns or breast to buns or something like that. Good. It's pretty funny. But she said that, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's once a quarter. She says, and this is on my calendar. Anybody at the company sees my calendar. They know what I'm doing every day.
Right.
But she took a day and it said something like CEO day. She says, literally, she walks into her office. She shuts the door. And she says, my door's always open. So people know when it's shut, don't.
Right.
It's a no-no. She says, so I shut my door. I go in. Don't turn on my computer. I just turn on like one light.
Yeah.
And she says, I pull out my notebook. And she says, I look at it like this. If they hired a new CEO today, some young hotshot go-getter, the first thing any new CEO wants to do is come in and make changes. Okay, we need to change this. We need to change this. We need to change this because they need to show people, look, number one, I'm not afraid to do something. Number two, this is going to make money. She says, so every quarter I walk in and I sat down with my notebook And she says, look, this happens like clockwork. This is something I don't miss.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I asked myself, okay, if they hired a new CEO today, what would they do?
Right.
And she said, and I start looking at my company. I start looking at the key personnel.
Interesting.
I start looking at anybody that is doing things right, that's doing things wrong, that's doing things amazing, that's got great ideas that I'm having problems with. And I start going through this list, and it's like, okay, you know, I've developed a relationship with this person.
I love it.
What would the new CEO coming in do?
Right. Probably.
And it's like, he's going to cut them.
Yeah.
He's going to cut them immediately.
That isn't working.
and he's going to go and say, you know what? If this person ever gets the idea to this guy, this new CEO, they're going to say, hey, that's a good idea. Let's try this.
Yeah.
And she says, Lori, I spend a day and it's nothing. It's not like, okay, let's hurry up and get in and get this done. It's like, look, this is an all day process.
Mm-hmm.
Cause she says, I look at everything in the company.
Yeah.
What would a new go-getter CEO do? Come in and sit down. And I love that. There's times when, and I'm not good at turning off everything every day for half an hour.
It's tough.
But every now and then it's like, you know, look, I just need to sit in my office.
Sure.
And I've got times that I don't turn on the computer, that I'll come in here and just pull out a notebook. I don't do it like she did, but I've always thought that is one of the most amazing things. Try to look at your company with a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's my whole plan was to write down things that my team would say no to, right? What are people going to say that won't work? Because I need to get those ideas out of my head. Cause even if I write down 50 of them and they say it won't work to 49 of the 50, what's the one? And I came up with an outlandish one time. I wanted to find a way to recognize people. So I came up with the Make Your Day team. So I took a bunch of people from the company and I put them on a team. And I said, here's your mission. Your mission is to find someone in the company every month that needs to have their day made. And then I want you to make their day. And I don't care what you do for them. I don't care. But it's your job. I said, no one ever knows outside of this group who is on this team. And if anybody finds out you're on the team, you're off the team. Because I didn't want the person that was having their day made to have someone to thank. They couldn't thank us because we weren't the ones that picked it. And they had no one to say thank you. They couldn't return the gratitude, right? We just wanted to make their day. We sent a single dad to Great Wolf Lodge with his daughter for a weekend. There was a young single mom in the company. They gave her $500 worth of groceries. And these were just the kind of things. And when I came up with this idea, I said, they're never going to want to do this. You know, nobody's ever going to, this isn't just, and 100% of the people that got their day made broke down crying. Oh yeah. Because their coworkers identified them as someone who was struggling, having a hard time, etc. And just out of the blue, we say, hey, we're sending you and your daughter to, and then we always wrote a letter to their family that went along with the Make Your Day. So the guy we sent to the Great Wolf Lodge, we drafted a letter to his daughter. Your dad's been working so hard for us and we appreciate him so much. So he takes time away from you to be able to do what he does for us. And so we are rewarding you for letting us borrow your dad, you know, I like that. And I the whole time I'm thinking nobody's going to want to do this because I didn't give them a budget, Roger. I didn't say you can do X amount. They said, what's our limit? I said, make their day. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. It was really cool. But that was one of the ideas I came up with when I was just jotting down, because you got to get your ideas out and you have to be creative and you have to be entrepreneurial, right? That's why you got into doing this in the first place. And what happens is then we start our company, we get bogged down with all the minutia and all the garbage and all the stuff that we think we have to do to run a company. And you really don't, because your people, if you hired great, smart people that are able to take care of problems and able to find solutions, you don't need to answer your phone. I had a technician say to me one time, because every time they called me with a problem. And all I would say is, what do you think we should do? Mm-hmm. And then they would give me an answer and I would say, okay, perfect. And then maybe later on we'd come back with some training. And I would always phrase it like this: next time you're in the situation, also consider this. I love what you did, but also consider this. And I had a guy tell me one time, he goes, man, I used to hate it when you would say to me, what do you think we should do? And I said, why do you hate it? Because he goes, because as the phone was ringing, I'm thinking, I actually don't really need him after all. I know exactly what he's going to say. I love that. And it cut down on I was getting 10, 15, 20 phone calls after work hours every single day after I was home with my family or whatever. And it stopped. You know, and
I had a guy that I worked with that literally told the team one day, he said, look, don't bring me a problem after 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Messes up the day.
Yep.
After 1 o'clock, you're not allowed to bring me a problem.
Yep.
You're not allowed to call me with a problem.
Yes.
You either find a solution or we talk about it the next morning.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
But two things about what you said, and I'll lose one of them, I know. But Duncan McCardle spoke at Social Media Marketing World one year. He used to be the guy. They would fly into Asia and say, we just bought 1,000 acres. Build a Disney. What does it look like?
Okay.
Lay it out. He worked with the Imagineers.
Okay? Love it.
And he said that when they got a team together, you were not allowed to say no. You were not allowed to say that won't work. You weren't allowed to say yes, but. All you were allowed to say is, and we could.
I love it.
And he said, so you'd sit around this big table and you would literally go around and you keep adding on, and he's like, I'd start out, okay, we're going to build a spaceship enterprise. And when you walk on it, anything in the world can happen. Go ahead.
Love it.
Yes. And the spaceship enterprise could have a water slide.
Right.
And it could do this. It could go outside the spaceship and come back in. And you go around and he says, look, we do this for a while. And that gets everybody's imagination juices flowing.
Love it.
And then at some point you say, okay, look, we know we can't do all this, but what could we actually do?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We could build a spaceship enterprise looking ride with a water park in it. Where was the Great Wolf Lodge you sent them to?
It was in Washington State.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I built the one here.
Okay, cool.
I was the superintendent over the water park.
Right.
So pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
But that's the way my mind works.
Yeah.
And I've been in training the past 3 days, and one big thing is, are you the visionary? Or are you the implementer?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the visionary.
Right.
Man, I wake up with an idea and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to build 4-wheelers that go underground and come back up and you can drive around the plumbing pipes. Go ahead, build it, take off.
Yeah.
And give them the power they need and just let them go do it. So that is pretty neat. But I love the idea of making people's days.
Totally.
One thing, coming back to it now that I remember talking to the owners of a company one day. We were getting ready to do a foreman superintendent conference. And I said, why don't y'all ever do anything for the wives? Mm-hmm. And I mean, they both kind of look at me like, I said, look here, you bring the foreman and superintendent in and you reward them for putting in 3,000 hours this year instead of 2,000.
Yeah.
The wife and the family lost them for 1,000 hours. It's overtime. They make good money.
Yeah.
But like you said, we still took your husband away from you.
Yeah.
We took your father away from you. I said, why don't y'all reward them? Why don't you send them to a day spa? Why don't you send the whole family on a vacation, or a week vacation or whatever, or a weekend getaway or whatever it is? And when I started doing that, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Yeah. And why not include the wives in the hiring process?
Yeah.
I have brought wives in for interviews before, and it started, I didn't even think of it, but a guy said to me one time, he goes, because we have a 4-day work week and a commission structure. And he's like, man, it's a little confusing. Like, do you have this down in writing so I can relay it to my wife? And I'm like, well, it's on the job offer. He's like, yeah, but it doesn't really explain it that well.
It doesn't go into depth.
And I said, would you like to bring your wife in? And he said, could I? And I said, yeah. And so he called her and he goes, well, she's with the kids right now. I'm like, bring the kids down. There's a drive-in next door. We'll get them milkshakes. And so we brought the whole family, and his 3 kids were sitting there, and I went on the whiteboard and I wrote it all out. And she looked at him and she goes, sign the offer.
Yeah. What are you waiting on?
Yeah. Why am I even here now?
And I love that. And one that I wanted to do, and those of y'all listening, guys, if you own a company, this is great information. You can start thinking, hey, this is what I'm going to do. But one of the things I wanted to do is, if I ever got big enough, I bring you in an interview. It's like, okay, what is one big dream you have you've never done?
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I've always wanted a Harley.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, will your wife let you have one? She's not going to shoot me if you end up with one or anything. And you talk about it and you figure it out, and you're like, okay. And you go down and look and you find the Harley you want, and it's $25,000. and you buy it. You have them crate it back up. You bring it into the office. You put it on a shelf. You store it, whatever, and say, there's your Harley. In 5 years, we uncrate it. You drive out. It's yours. Now, this is something I'm investing in you.
Yeah.
Harley, at the time I was thinking about this, was 25 grand, a good bike.
Yeah.
Not the most expensive bike they make. This guy comes in the office every day looking up at that bike.
Looks up at the
That's
bike.
what I'm working for, baby, right there.
Yeah.
You get mad and leave. Okay, I'm going to sell that new bike and I'm going to make more than I paid for it.
Right.
So it doesn't matter to me. I'm coming out. I'm coming out ahead either way.
Either way, right.
But I'm investing $5 grand in you over the next each year for 5 years.
Yeah.
To make sure you're going to get what you want and it's not going to cost you anything.
Sure.
I love that idea.
Absolutely.
I was like, man, this is phenomenal. And I never got big enough to do that.
Yeah.
But
that's outside the box thinking though, right? Like what can you offer people that other people aren't going to offer them other than pay, right? Because if all things are equal, let's say all things are the same across all organizations, they're going to sign with the company that's going to pay them the most money, even if it's only 50 cents an hour, if everything's equal. So what do you have that's different and better? Like, as you know, a lot of guys in our trade, a lot of these blue collar guys, they don't know financial planning. They don't know how to save for a down payment on a house. They don't understand that compound interest is the most powerful force in the entire world. These things. And I would sit guys down and say, okay, what are your financial goals for your family? We want to buy a house. Okay, here's what price range is your house payment do you want? Okay, well, to do that, this is the amount of a house you can buy.
How quick are you wanting to buy it?
This is the down payment that you need to do it. And here's what you're currently making. And here's what we got to put aside every single paycheck so that 1 year from now you can buy that house. And you'd give them a little coaching and financial planning and I, and getting to know their family. We did a Christmas party and everybody got to bring a plus one. And I got the names of all the plus ones and I memorized the name of every person.
That is so cool.
So guy would walk up, I was like, John, this must be your wife, Teresa, right? Now there's one guy I'm still mad at, Justice, if you're watching this. He changed his plus one a few times before the Christmas party. And I think I
call him the wrong name.
I got his wrong, but that was the only one. But yeah, you like, it costs me absolutely nothing to learn their wives and their spouses and their girlfriends' names, everything and their husband's name, and the look on their face when I called their significant other by name. I had a box of Christmas cards, Roger, and every day I would flip through and read them.
I love it.
Teresa and Brandon, John and Teresa.
That is so good.
I would flip through and do that and go, okay, this is, it was super important. And I stood at the front door and I handed everyone a Christmas card and called them by name.
That's neat. Okay. Going back, I remember the other big one I want to talk about. You talked about your make their day.
Yeah, make your day.
The book about Ritz-Carlton. Always do the right thing.
Yes,
whatever
correct.
it is. I'm pretty close.
Always do the next right thing. Yeah.
I've got the book. I listened to it. There's a story in there about a guy stays at the Ritz-Carlton. He checks out early the next morning, flies back home to Hawaii, back to work, Hawaii meeting in Hawaii, whatever. And he realizes, oh my God, I left my computer. And he calls the Ritz and ends up, they connect him with the housekeeper for that room. She's like, yeah, it's right here. He's like, oh my God, I've got to have that computer tomorrow. And I'm like, well, can I open it up? Can I take something out of it? Can I send it to you? It's like, no, I've got to have that computer. Well, they've got a policy similar to do whatever it takes to take care of that customer.
Yeah.
She literally, she's either off the next 2 days or off the next day or that night or whatever it is. She literally books a flight to Hawaii, goes, delivers the computer.
Unreal.
She like takes a red-eye flight, so it's there the next morning.
Unreal.
Comes back home.
I got goosebumps right now.
I'm fixing to get teary-eyed. And everybody's asking her, so what? You're in Hawaii. Did you spend a day or two? Or she's like, oh, no.
I had a shift the next day.
I had to get back to work.
Yeah.
But I had to get this person her computer. It was
unbelievable.
And they said, well, did you get in trouble? Like, no, I got rewarded.
You got employee of the month. What are you talking about?
I got like, that is going above and beyond.
Absolutely.
And, we all say that we do that for our customers. Look, I've lost money on jobs because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I get it. I've installed a new toilet when it wasn't part of the project because, look, this is an old raggedy toilet. You need something new. I've gone above and beyond. As entrepreneurs, if we would look at our employees and say, I want to go above and beyond for them. And look, I can get better at it. We all can. But Tommy Mello's really good about it. Look, I invest in my team.
Yes.
It's the most important thing that we have are the team members around us. And I think that is so phenomenal. So, man, when I hear about stuff like that, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do this training in my onboarding too. And you talk about customer service like that. And I love that story. There are 5 types of customers that you have. People are angry, right? They're unsatisfied. They don't care either way. They got the service and they paid the bill and they're not happy or unhappy. Then there's you're happy. And then there's your raving fans. Mm-hmm. And I always ask people, of those 5, which one is the most dangerous? And people say, oh, it's the angry customer. And I say, no. If you take an angry customer and turn them into a happy customer, that's the best customer you can ever have. The most dangerous customer on that list is the one that doesn't care either way. Because the next time they need service, they don't go, I have to call Express.
You bet.
They say, oh, I'm going to go to Google and because I don't even remember the name of the company that I used last time. So yeah, do we want raving fans? Sure. That's the 3%, right? Those people that I was standing in, I went out and did a job when I was doing sales. I sold a $30,000 heat pump ductwork system. And I asked the guy how he heard about us. And he said, well, I was standing in line at the grocery store. My wife and I were talking about getting a heat pump installed. And the guy tapped me on the shoulder and handed me your business card. And I said, not only did that guy love me, he carried my business cards. I don't even know who it was to this day. You don't get many of those. And really the angry customers, you don't really get many of those either. Those are just the ones we focus on because they get us.
You bet. And the squeaky wheel.
I fight over the angry customer. That's the one I want. Like I want to call back the angry customer.
Yeah, because if you can get them up here,
the best feeling in the world is making them happy.
It's neat. I used to host a networking event for real estate agents. And, a lot of them used me. And I had one call one day and said, hey, look, I'm putting a swag bag together for an event I'm doing. And she lived West Dallas, Southwest Dallas, something like that. My office is Northeast. So it's 45, 50 miles. She says,
which in this area is about 4.5
hours. Which is at least an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. She says, can I come pick up some cards to put in my swag bag? She said, I'm going to have about 100 people here and I want to give them your card.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're going to drive all the way over here? And I'm swamped because she's like, maybe we can meet somewhere. I said, look, I cannot get away. God, I wish I could. And finally I said, look, I've got a CSR I can send. I can send somebody with a card. She said, no. I want to come see your office.
Wow.
Drove all the way over to pick up 100 cards to put in swag bags to tell people about
her customers about you. That's amazing.
And I'm like, can I buy your gas? Can I do anything? And she's like, look, I want to do this. She says, this is something I want to do because I know you'll take care of my people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I love that.
Well, you got to be careful. Always do what you say you're going to do too, right? Mm-hmm. We had a customer one time. She was so angry and I looked her in the eye and I said, what would it take to make you happy? She said, well, you call yourself the Disney of HVAC. You could send me to Disneyland. So that was my response. So I went back to the office and looked it up. I got plane tickets for her and her husband and her 5-year-old kid, 3 nights at the Disneyland hotel and 3-day park hopper pass. And I drove back out to her house and handed it to her.
There you go.
We screwed her up so bad. It was one of the worst sideways jobs we've ever had. I was humiliated walking in there and looking at the work that we did. And the way that one of our employees left that customer and he lied to her in the whole 9 yards. And I said, hey, I asked the question. Now I have to, don't ask the question if you're not willing to do what they say. And man, she turned into a raving fan that day. You should see the review she wrote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably 3 pages long.
It was something and I don't remember it word for word. It was, nothing could have gone worse on this job, but please continue reading to the end. And she explained everything that happened. And she goes, and then they came and made it right. And she explained this whole thing. And that's the best review you can get.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can read 5-star reviews all day long about our happy customers that loved
your
what
wife could have wrote it. Anybody could have wrote it.
Yep. Show me the person where it went wrong and how you handled it. Because I know when I go to Google, I go on lowest rating. I read those first.
And not only the lowest rating, what did they write?
Yeah.
How did the owner respond?
How did the response come? Yep.
Did the response come say, lady, look, you're crazy. You have no idea. You didn't know what you wanted.
Yeah.
Man, when I see people like that, I'm like, dude, you're going to be out of business before long.
One of my competitors back home, they would always get angry and defend themselves. And one time they wrote something like, well, I'm glad that you recognize how well we communicated with you, because the lady's review was I had to call them 5 times.
Right.
And and then she took credit for the communication.
That's funny.
They just don't understand how to properly handle those. But
that
man, getting on an airplane, I don't think I can beat that one.
No, I need to go back and read that book again, because I want to get the story exactly
Incredible.
right. And there's so many people out there doing things right, but there's also so many people doing things wrong.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take that much time, effort. It may take money, but you can't spend enough to get amazing reviews like that.
No.
And most people don't get it.
And you can't spend enough to get rid of your bad ones.
Yeah. Well, they're coming out with products that'll do that now.
Yes, they are.
Which is kind of blows my mind. Because used to, when I had my company, I remember I'd go to networking events, and you always run into another plumber, another HVAC tech or somebody. And they'd come up to me and say, hey, how do you get rid of your negative reviews? And I'm like, what do you mean?
You can do that?
And they're like, how do you get rid of them? I said, I don't. I said, really, what do you mean? I said, well, Roger, all the reviews that I see are 4 and 5 stars. How do you get rid of the 1s and the 2s? It's like, it's really easy. I don't get them.
Right.
And they're like, come on. And I'm like, man, do the right thing. I said, why do you get a lot of 1s and 2s? And it's like, yeah, and I don't know how to get rid of them. It's like, dude, you're not doing something right.
Yeah.
And most people don't get that.
And you ask, whenever I call a customer that's upset, I say, hey, I'm just responding to the review you left, et cetera. And I say, at the end of this call,
if we can make things right, yes.
At the end of this call, I guarantee I'm going to make you happy, because I'm going to ask you after I get all the details what it will take to make you happy, and you're going to tell me, and then I'm going to do what you say. And the only thing I'm going to ask for you in return is to consider changing your review based on how I handle this situation. And if you do that, then then that would be awesome.
And that's a great way to do it, because and you could even preface all that by saying, look, you understand sometimes people make mistakes, right?
Totally.
And I remember one thing I used to tell apprentices all the time. They'd come up to me and they're like, man, I screwed something up. It's like, okay.
Okay.
And they're like, well, I messed it up. It's like, we're not gone yet.
Right.
We're not done. This job isn't over.
Yeah.
We don't stop right now, pick up our tools and leave. What did you mess up?
Yeah.
I chipped a counter on the lavatory. Okay. Let's go tell Miss Johnson, hey, look, we chipped your counter. The good news is, what kind of counter would you like on it?
Yeah.
Because we're going to replace it.
Right.
And they're like, you're not mad? It's like, well, I'm not happy about it.
Sure.
I want us to learn from this. And we're going to bring it up with all the other plumbers. But look, we all make mistakes.
Totally. It happens every day.
And if Miss Johnson gets mad, it's like, Miss Johnson, look, we're going to make this right.
Sure.
You understand that? Because I told you before we started, we're going to give you a 5-star service job.
Correct.
And she's like, yeah, but you broke the countertop. Okay.
Good news.
You're going to get a brand new one.
Yeah. You've been wanting to change it anyway, probably. So
do you see the cracks in the bottom of your sink? Guess what? They're going away.
Be gone. Yeah. Because let's face it, the average person can't do what these guys in the field do, because if they could, we wouldn't have a workforce problem.
None of us would be working.
The market would be flooded with qualified technicians. They work really long hours, right? There's overtime, sometimes in adverse conditions. It's either hot out or it's cold out. It's either windy out
sometimes
or it's
both on the same day.
Sometimes it's both on the same day. Sometimes they're out till 9 o'clock the last morning, and they got that next customer at 7 a.m. the next morning, 9 o'clock at night, 7 a.m. Sometimes they're out all night. Sometimes they work 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 days in a row. The average person cannot do what they do. So mistakes are absolutely going to happen. It's part of what we signed up for. Right. When we decided to be a business owner, we signed up for the fact that somebody's going to wreck a van. Somebody's going to step in through the rafter and go through the ceiling. Somebody's going to, set an attic on fire. Hopefully not. That's a big one. But all of these things happen in the course of doing business. How are you going to respond to that when they happen? And the way you responded is how the new workforce wants you to respond. When I was 18, the way my boss responded was throwing tools, screaming, calling you every swear word in the book. And that's my whole crux of hiring differently, right? I used to interview people and I'll tell them, you know, if you ever get yelled at by a manager or ridiculed or belittled, I'll write you a check for $10,000 and I put it in the job offer.
Wow.
And then, because that makes a statement. It's in your job offer. We're contractually obligated now to pay you $10,000 if we ever yell at you. Who wants to be yelled at?
Yeah, nobody.
Right? Who actually works better when they feel unappreciated, beat down, degraded? Nobody works better.
What's that old sign say? The beatings will continue
until the morale improves. Right. Exactly. And it's completely opposite, right? You want good morale, handle it the way you handled it.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you those guys go home and go, I screwed up at work today. And guess what? I didn't even get yelled at. Like, and now they're actually less likely to make a mistake the next time because I believe they care more about the company and doing a good job because the company showed care for them. Yeah. If you scream and yell at your people and you demean them and you belittle them, they don't care about your company. Do you think they care when it's kind of like this, right? Your kid does something stupid. So you yell at him in the morning, you call him an idiot and then what do you say on their way out the door?
Yeah.
Have a good day at school, right? I'm supposed to have a good day now. So if you want to dress somebody down and then say, okay, well go out and sell something or go out and make a customer happy now. And he's driving out there going, I don't give a crap about this company.
You bet.
I don't give a crap about this job. Or you coach them up, say, hey, yeah, I realize you made a mistake. Let's do this next time. Instead, be more careful. You know the process for this, etc. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again, okay? Hey, man, have a good rest of your day. They kind of look at you like, what?
I had a plumber call me one day, and I could tell as soon as I got on the phone something was wrong. His voice, you can tell. And he's like, hey, you got a minute, I need to talk to you. I said, yeah, I'm good. Everything okay? He said, well, no. I said, all right. He said, I'm out on this job. And, you know, we're doing a spot repair out in the yard, sewer line. He says, I cut the sewer camera. I'm like, okay.
The bill flashed in my head.
Yeah. Because those aren't cheap.
No, they are not.
The first thing I said is, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I cut the sewer camera. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I'll pay for it. I said, no, you won't. He said, but I cut it. I said, I understand that. Here's the deal. It can be fixed. I said, I'm assuming that you pushed the camera down, you located it, figured out right where to mark it, right where to dig it and all that. You dug it, you got down to it, you're trying to cut it and get it knocked out. And he said, yeah. So, but you forgot to pull the camera out before, once you marked it, you went right into the next phase. He said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, are you going to do it again? He's, oh God. And you could hear it in his voice. He's like, oh God, no.
Poor kid.
I said, I understand that. I said, so let's just make sure we talk about it tomorrow when we've got all the plumbers there. And that way everybody understands. Look, there's systems and processes and procedures and the right way to do things. Do you understand we should have pulled the camera out? He's like, yeah. I said, okay, I know you do. As long as we don't do it again, I'm fine. Yeah. And I did. I mean, pulled it out, took it in, had it returned, put it all back together and all that. It's not cheap.
No.
But as far as I know, we never did it again.
Right.
And that's the important part.
I used to have, that was my patented line. So you agree that we'll never have to have this conversation again?
You bet.
Right? It's like we have and that's an impactful statement for people, right? So now we have an agreement. We all have an understanding of what's supposed to happen. Now we have an agreement and they go out going, man, that was actually a pretty cool way to get in trouble, right? Like, because you were never really in trouble.
Two conversations like that. I remember working with Beard Mechanical. Yeah. The president of the company at the time was RV Tate. So I call him Mr. Tate, whatever. RV Tate. And I remember getting called into his office one day. And Mr. Tate at the time was probably about 70. And he just talked to you real softly. And he said, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this and make sure this happens and make sure this happens. And it was all, he just talked in the softest tone of voice. And I remember getting up, walking out one day, and I thought, I just got my butt chewed.
Yeah.
And he never raised his voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I ain't never doing that again.
Yeah.
And that right there, it does. It makes you think, wow.
Yeah. Yep. If you want to become great at tough conversations, and I didn't used to be, and I taught myself this. One of my coworkers said to me one time, he said, nothing ever seems to bother you. You take bad news better than anyone I've ever known, and it just rolls off your back. You're never affected. Your face doesn't change. Your voice doesn't change. We could have an employee that was upset with us, screaming and yelling at us, and I'm sitting there the same way as if they're praising us. And he goes, I don't know how you do it. And in fact, he removed himself from tough conversations after that because of the way I would handle them. And the rule of the company was nothing tough ever happens conversation wise unless Brandon's in the room, right? Because I could always, but here is the thing. And if you can understand this and put this into practice, it will change your life in regards to tough conversations and dealing with tough situations. Behavior is driven by circumstance. People are behaving the way they are because of the circumstance that they are in. The mistake we make is paying attention to the behavior, and we address the behavior and we try to change the behavior. Calm down, stop yelling, don't use that line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have the ability to completely ignore your behavior. I don't hear it. I don't see it. It doesn't bother me, because the moment I do that, the circumstance rushes to the forefront. What is the circumstance?
Which is the real issue.
Correct. Maybe you got a great person in front of you whose dad's dying of cancer, and he's getting 3 hours of sleep every night, and he's got the financial burden. He might be going through a divorce. He might have a kid with a medical issue. They may be about to lose their home. You don't know. They may be battling a substance abuse issue. There's something going on that, and it might be that we've wronged them, so they're behaving this way. We didn't do what we said we were going to do, and they haven't brought it up, and all those little rocks have been put in their bucket that they're holding, and now they're dropping the bucket because it's become too heavy.
You bet. Or they're holding 3 buckets with 2 hands.
What is the circumstance driving that behavior? If you ignore the behavior, all that's left is the circumstance. And then you understand the circumstance, and if you can repeat it back to them, hey, I understand that you're upset, and here's what I'm getting from the situation. And sometimes it may be as much as giving them a day off. Sometimes they might need 2 weeks off. They might be in the wrong seat in the company. I had an installer come to me one day. He was so unhappy with his job. He started here. He was a 10, and my job was to figure out why. Right. And so when he got down to about a 4, I called him in. I said, man, what's going on? He said, I hate my job. I hate the role. I love the company. He was an installer, an HVAC installer. Do you know what he wanted to do?
Sales.
No.
What?
Accounting. Right? I had the same reaction. I chuckled at that. And so you know what happened? I said, okay, so if I showed you a path to accounting, can you stick out install for the busy season? I'll show you the path. He said, yep. So the busy season got done. You know what we did? We put him in the call center and taught him how to answer phones and talk to customers and learn the software. Then he became an accounting assistant, and he's now the accountant at the company, and he's so happy he brought his wife who works at the company, and you know what I mean?
Got her following the same flow path.
Completely changed everything because we recognized I ignored the knee-jerk reaction was to call him in and say, what is your problem? Your performance has slipped. Your jobs are going sideways. You're costing us money. None of your apprentices want to work with you anymore. What is your deal, man? Right. Mine was, hey, I've seen a noticeable change in your tone. Right. What's up? You want to tell me what's going on? I would love to fix this because you're a great guy and we want you here and you're awesome. We called them OKGs, which is our kind of guys or our kind of gals. I said, you're an OKG and we want you here. What's going on? Will you please talk to me? And he said, I hate my job. I hate what I do. I hate being out in the field every day. And I'm like, sure, he wants to do sales. What do you want to do, man? He goes, well, I've been going to school online at night to get my accounting degree. And I was like, you what? Like no one goes from installer to accountant. Oh yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And so just by identifying, having a conversation, and when he came in and sat down that day to talk to me, he was angry. Like he was visibly angry. And by the end of the conversation, we were laughing, and within 6 months, I had him in the call center on his way to being an accountant. Wow. And just identify, I ignored his behavior. I ignored the temper tantrum. He was out. The reason I got him in that morning, he's out in his truck throwing tools, throwing the old stuff out the back. Everybody was like walking around his truck. Nobody wanted to go near him. So I said, hey man, why don't you come in and sit down for a sec?
I love that.
It's easy and it feels better for me.
This video is sponsored by High Level. We've partnered up with High Level because we believe this is the best all-in-one sales and marketing platform to help you grow your business. For your 30-day free trial, go to gohighlevel.com/Roger Wakefield. Brandon, what is it that companies are doing wrong?
A lot.
Most companies, not all of them. There's some good ones.
Yeah.
You know, we talked earlier about Jimmy Dale.
Yes.
I've had Gus in here.
Gus is awesome.
Man, I love them.
Yeah.
And the way they're doing things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've had Dave Hill in here. You know, you referenced earlier being in the wrong seat. Mm-hmm. Good to Great, Jim Collins.
Good to Great. Best book ever.
So a lot of companies don't go from 1 million to 100 million.
Yeah.
Most of them don't.
Correct.
Most of them don't go to 10 million.
Correct.
Okay. What are they not doing right?
So I'm going to go back to it. I hit it earlier, but when we decided to change the way that we were doing things and to reading Good to Great and doing that, it was, our industry is a grind, right? It is a grind. And a lot of people in this industry are just ground to a pulp. And they're caught up in this machine that just churns them out, and they go to the next place for 50 cents an hour, and you're churned and churned and churned. So our thought process was, if we can't do this being the good guys, we don't want to do it anymore. All right? Because quite frankly, if you're struggling with revenue and you're not making profit and you're in this grind, most of these guys that own businesses in our trades were amazing technicians. Let's face it, they could probably make more money working for someone else and not have all the stress and the headache and the financial burden and the worry and all of that. It's possible, right? You could just go be a sales guy somewhere and make way more money than you're making grinding all this out, worrying about paying suppliers, people calling in sick, all of this stuff. So if you're going to do it, wouldn't you rather do it being the good guy, and then you can feel good about it and it's more fun for you, and all of a sudden you get to work less? Because I promise you, if you do it that way, the revenue will follow.
You bet.
If you listen, we use a Venn diagram, right? And there's 3 things in there. What are you passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine, right? And so what are we passionate about? We're passionate about people. What can we be the best in the world at? We could be the best trade company in the world. What drives our economic engine? Well, it's the trades itself. The mistake is saying you could be the best plumber in the world. Okay. I don't care how great you are. There's another guy down the street that could claim, maybe he might even be a better plumber. He might sweat pipe better. He might be a better 10 bender on an HVAC. He might make more beautiful transitions than you. You can never really say I can be the best plumber in the world, the best HVAC. You can always try. You could try, and I want you to try.
You bet.
But here's what we said. Well, we're really passionate about people. What can we be the best in the world at? We can create the best place to work in the world. And what drives that economic engine then is just the work. And then the work, it doesn't matter if we're selling hot dogs, designer handbags, or shoes at that point. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what the product is and what we're selling. What matters is if we have the best place in the world to work in the trades, does it stand to reason that we're going to get the best people want to come work for us? I get stalked by people that want to come work for us because we treat them better, pay them better, and develop them better than anybody else can, because nobody else cares about it. They say, here's your truck, here's your revenue goal. I need you to run 4 calls every day at this average ticket and this close percentage to make your number and you hit your KPI, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or you focus on them as a person, train them, develop them, build them up, empower them, make them feel great about themselves, and watch them go exceed those KPI numbers that you tried to set for them. That's how it works.
That part's neat.
That is the best part of it.
How do companies get there?
First of all, you have to be the change. So if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, general manager, supervisor, lead, and you want to affect this change, you have to live it, because you can't preach it and then not do it yourself. You know, we had a no smoking, no tattoo policy. It's this company I used to work at, and the owner of the company has hundreds of tattoos. And on day 1 of the policy, he came in wearing a long sleeve shirt and wore it every single day. Yep. He also quit smoking. He smoked at the time, right? And so he lived that culture that we were trying to create. Culture is the most important thing in any organization, any business in the world, is your culture. There are lots of different kinds of cultures. There's good cultures, bad cultures, winning cultures, losing cultures, cultures of accountability, cultures of blame. There's all different kinds of them. Identify what your culture is now and decide if you need to change that. What is your culture? Be very hard on yourself and say, what is the culture of my company? And if you don't know, ask. They will tell you what the culture of the company is. Though one of the best things I ever got was from Bubba Thurman over at Baker Brothers. Mm-hmm. Bubba is one of the most amazing dudes on the planet. And I spent some time with him, and he said, you know what I do, Brandon? As I walk in the morning with a bag full of breakfast sandwiches, I'll go get 6 or 7 of them, and I'll grab a few guys and I'll pull them in a conference room, and I'll set the bag of sandwiches on the table and say, so how are we doing? And then I don't say another word. He goes, and they tell us how we're doing, because people will open up for a breakfast sandwich and in a group setting.
You know, and I love that. And I remember talking to Gus, and I don't remember if it was in here in the podcast or it was over in the live stream. He said that they'll have a meeting, and I'm assuming it's just a normal, executive board meeting, leader meeting, whatever it is. But then the thing is to go around the room and say, tell me what we're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to say, well, we're really good at this. It doesn't even start that way.
Yeah.
I don't want to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
What are we doing wrong?
Right. And there's 2 phrases you must remove from your vocabulary when you have these meetings with your people. The first one is to be fair, right? Because now I'm not listening to anything you said. Or in our defense,
right.
Stop saying that. Nod your head. Shut up and nod your head, and
write it down because it's real.
We're in a meeting one time. I was in there with a manager, and this person was probably one of the best at her job I had ever seen in my 20-year career in the trades. And she was unhappy, and I identified it. And we sat her down with a meeting, and she brought in a list of things. And guy's sitting here, and she's sitting here, and I'm sitting here, and I could see her list. And she's kind of got it covered up, right? But I could see. After the second or third time she heard to be fair or in our defense or well, actually, she pulled the piece of paper down and she said, that's all I got. There were 15 more items on that list, Roger, but she was done.
Right.
Right. Because we shut her down. So identify your culture through your people. Find out what is going on. You have to be open to it. You can't take offense to it. Listen, if you're going to send a survey request out to your people and ask them how things are going, and you're going to react negatively and defensively, let somebody else compile those results and deliver them to you in a softer way. Don't read every single response. Right. But then and only then can you actually change your culture into what you want it to be. But ask yourself, do I feel good leaving my office at the end of the day? Am I happy and smiling when I drive out of here? Because if you're not, I guarantee you the people that work for you are not. And then once you've identified your culture, you can actually create the culture you want. And it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to build trust with people. You have to be consistent. You have to be reinforcing, and they need to see it. You have to preach it every single day. Every company meeting, talk about your core values and what they are and what they mean. Reinforce them through how you recognize people and how you talk to people. Go read The 1 Minute Manager. It's one of the greatest little tiny books in the entire world. But the focus of The 1 Minute Manager is to catch people doing things right. And the more you catch people doing things right, the more you will build a positive learning culture where people want to get better and want to grow, because all of these things drive the revenue of the company. That's what brings it along. Do we need technical training? Absolutely. Do they need to be proficient at their craft? Hey, we need to be the best at our craft, right? We need to push to that, to be the best at our craft. But none of that other stuff happens if people don't feel right, want to be there, want to contribute to the cause, believe in the organization, believe in leadership. Not everybody wants to be a leader.
Oh, no.
People want to come to work,
and
work in the process, do their job, be successful, earn a great living, and go home at the end of the day.
You bet.
You need those people.
You need them every day.
You need more of them than you need of leaders. Will the natural born leaders come to the top and lead? Yes. Those were all the people on the Make My Day team. Right. And so you can do that, but creating and developing that culture and solidifying it every single day will absolutely change the world in the company. And I won't ever do it any other way ever again. Disclaimer, I used to be the other guy.
Oh no,
right. I coached high school.
I was the plumber that screamed and yelled, and
I coached high school volleyball for 30 years, a little over 30 years now. And my ex-wife, when we were married at the time, she came to a tournament one day to watch me coach. And she said, I'm never, ever coming to watch you coach volleyball again. Right. And I said, why? Why? And she goes, rather than tell you, how about I show you? And we had one of those old school little handheld video cameras. Yeah. So she sets it down and hits play, and she walked out of the room. And I was in a room by myself and I could feel my face turning red. I was embarrassed at what I was watching. So the next year I took the next year off and I attempted to make contact with every girl I had ever coached. And, you know, if you're watching this and I didn't get to you, I'm sorry. And so I attempted to make contact, and then I changed the way I did things, right? And I became the coach that, you know, nobody wants to play for the coach that yells and screams and all that. And I became the coach they wanted to play for. I identified, not everybody on your team learns and responds the same way. Learn your people, learn how they learn. And this is your responsibility as a leader. You must be a chameleon. You must change and adapt to the environment and the learning style and the communication style of the person that you're dealing with. If you don't want to do that, quit right now and hire somebody to do that for you.
Man, that's great, because I've had a plumber come up to me and say, dude, look, you got to get in me. You've got to get on my butt. You've got to grab me by the throat, throw me up against the wall, whatever it is.
Yes.
When you're just telling me, yeah, hey, look, I need you to do this. He says that just goes right on by.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you sure? Yeah. He's like, that's what it takes to get my attention. I'm like, wow.
I had girls that I coached, I had to go up to and say, hey, it seems like you're having a bad day. Like, what's going on? You know, and I coached a girl named Natalie Hayward, who plays professionally overseas, first team SEC setter of the year at the University of Tennessee. If I walked up and said that to Nat.
That's the wrong UT, but go ahead.
I get it. If I walked up and said that to Nat, she'd look at me like I was crazy. You know what I said to Nat? You are killing us right now. I need you to pull it out and get out there and be better.
That's the way I was.
Right. And she would look at me and go, got it. Right. So but are either one of those people wrong? Absolutely not. Because what I was doing by responding to them in the way they need to be talked to is
speaking to them in their language.
Out of them, correct, and getting them to respond. What do I care how I have to do it? Do I really care that I might have to be softer on this person and harder on this person as long as I get the result out of them that I want? Do I really care how I got the result? I don't. I don't need to be right, and it doesn't have to be my way.
You bet. All right, this has been fun. Tell me about your worst day ever.
Ooh, personal or work?
Work.
Let me tell you about my worst personal day ever.
Okay.
This is a really heavy story with a great ending. And I don't mind telling my story. I've told this story on stage at Expo. My wife and I had custody of my niece and two nephews for a while. And two of them went to live with their dad, and we had the youngest one for 8 months. He was 2 years old, and we had him on again and off again till he was 10. My sister was a drug addict. And when he was 10 years old, she shot him and then shot and killed herself. And he lived in the hospital for 2 days. And I was there with him the whole time. And I was the one that made the decision to take him off life support. But I walked out of the hospital that day. And that's a very abridged story, right? Here's where it gets good. I walked out of the hospital that day. It was about 6:15 in the morning in the summer in Seattle, middle of July, really nice. And I was struck by something incredible. The sun came up. All right. So here I was in my grief and my torture and my trauma and this horrific thing that I had witnessed and been a part of. And the freaking sun still came up. Right. Like it was coming up no matter what. And I said to myself in the moment, standing outside downtown Seattle Harborview Hospital, watching the sun come up over the water, I said, today is going to be the worst day of my life. So that no matter what happens from this day forward, I got through that.
You bet. And
it pales in comparison. So when somebody wrecks a van, when somebody breaks a piece of equipment, when some people installs a furnace wrong and blows a board, it pales in comparison to that day. I can handle this so much easier than I handled that, because before that day, I was the excuse guy. This happened to me.
Right. Here's
everything
why.
Bad happens to me. If Honeywell sends out 10,000 thermostats today, I'm getting the one that's bad in the box, right? That was my attitude. After that, it was like, all right, we got the bad one in the box. Let's get another one.
Good. Nobody else did.
Correct. And so that worst day of my life changed everything about my life, including my work and my perspective and how I went about doing things day to day, because it paled in comparison to that. Nothing else could ever touch that day.
So good.
Right. And so I live a very blessed life, right? I mean, I am in a position to be able to affect people's lives, right? Improving lives is my personal life mission, to improve lives. So I get an opportunity every day to improve multiple lives. And every person I hire is one more person whose life I can make better. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to work for Express for 30 years, right? They may be with me 30 days, but in the 30 days they're with me, I will improve their life over how they came to me.
Beautiful.
Right? We will make them better and make their life better. And it may just be in some simple human interaction. It may be telling my story. I'm not afraid to tell that story. Like I said, I've told it on stage at Expo.
I love it.
And it has helped a lot of people. But how do I improve their lives? That is what I get to do every day. And that is why the worst day of my life is now the best day of my life, because I recognize where I could be and where I am.
So good.
So I'm blessed every day that I get to walk up and affect people.
So now, since that's your best and your worst day, give me the best work day of your life.
The best work day, man. I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm not sure anything is ever going to top this. I was doing HVAC sales, and at the time, about 1 out of every 24 homes in Seattle had air conditioning, because, you know, we get hot up there, but we only get over 100, like once every 10 or 12 years. And when it does get hot, it lasts for like 3 days and then it goes away. Right. So people buy box fans, portable air conditioners. So I went into a home.
Go sleep in ice baths.
Yeah. They'll go to a hotel, or go to a friend's house. Yeah. Or the difference between Seattle and here is the nighttime low, right? The nighttime low in Dallas is 78. The nighttime low in the middle of the summer in Seattle is 50.
Oh, so yeah. Open a window. And here, the nighttime low in the middle of summer can be 100.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Open a window, right? Yeah. In Seattle. So I go into a house with a lady who wanted air conditioning, and she had an 18-year-old daughter with cerebral palsy, who there are different levels of that, as I understand. And this girl couldn't talk, and she couldn't sit up on her own, and she was laying on the couch. And I gave them a quote, and the mom accepted it, and she said, "How soon can you do it?" And I'm like, I know that we're like 3 weeks out. And she said, "Is there anybody that you think would move up? I'd be willing to pay them to change spots with me." Well, the day before or a couple of weeks before, I sold to a guy who was coming up, a single guy. And I called him. I said, "Hey man, are you willing to move back?" He goes, "Dude, I'm going on vacation. I'll move back." I said, "The lady's willing to pay." He said, "Tell her to keep the money." Her daughter's on the couch making a lot of noise, like a lot of verbal noise. And the lady said to me, she said, she understands everything we're saying right now. She just can't communicate. She's verbally communicating to you right now. She just can't speak words. And I said, "Is it cool if I go over and talk to her?" And she said, "Yeah." So I sat down on the couch and I like held her hand, and I said, because every day during this summer, the lady was taking her to the mall, to the library, to the movie. She was getting her out of the house to get her cool so that she would be comfortable. And I said, "Hey, we're going to come install an air conditioner here in 2 days. You don't have to leave the house anymore and have all that trouble of getting ready and going out. And you just get to be comfortable and sleep in your own house."
That's cool.
And Roger, she squeezed my hand harder than my hand had ever been squeezed before. And she lit up, and she was smiling. And that was the best work day I've ever had, because, probably not a lot of people spend the time to want to talk to her and have an interaction. But like, as soon as the lady told me she knew what we were talking, and I had no knowledge, right? I didn't know. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to include her in this process too. And the part for me too is sales are nice, right? As a sales guy, you love to make sales. I still get an adrenaline rush, like we all do. But by the time I had the conversation with the daughter, the contract was already signed and I already had the down payment. This wasn't about closing a sale. I'm a connection guy, and it was about making a connection with this girl. And this moment you said that, it popped into my head, is still the best work day I've ever had. So
cool.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, Brandon, tell everybody again who you are, where you're at, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, Brandon Jones. I'm a partner at Express Home Services. We are in Richardson, Texas, right on TI Boulevard, specializing in roofing right now. We'll go anywhere from Oklahoma to Houston to do roofing. ExpressHomeServicesTX.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Express Home Services. My email address is Brandon@ExpressHomeServicesTexas.com or TX.com. And I'll say this too, like, I know a lot of guys that watch this are in the trade and not necessarily customers. I love to talk shop, right? If you have a question about recruiting, shoot me an email, Brandon@ExpressHomeServicesTX.com. I'll send you back my phone number, and I'll talk to you anytime you want. I have been successful and been able to do all this because I've learned from so many people. And so I really feel like I need to help about 1 million people to be able to pay that forward properly. So let's talk shop. I would love to.
Good deal. Yeah. Brandon, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.